Hello, welcome back. So we're now on to data visualization. So what visualization is, it's the presentation of data in a nice graphical format. So this is great because it can help us to understand the data much better. And you know, there's that nice old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, that's going to be very applicable as we go through this class. So we're going to start off then with the histogram and the frequency polygon. So first of all, with the histogram, all it is a chart that presents the distribution of numerical data. So the height of the bar or the column, that shows us the absolute frequency of each bin or interval in our distribution. So we're going to do a histogram for our Riverside retail example that we did in the previous class. So let's just go back to it to refresh our memory. Where is it now? There it is there. So what we're going to be graphing are the absolute frequencies. So remember the absolute frequencies? These show us the number of observations in each interval or bin. So for example, remember this one, this interval, 0 to 5%. The return was in this interval for 4 years out of the 10 years. So 4 times the return was in this interval. So we're just going to be plotting these absolute frequencies. So let's just go back then quickly. Plot each absolute frequency for each interval. So there we go. So there we go. We can see, as we said, this interval 0 to 5%. The return was in this interval for 4 of the 10 years. And we can see remember we had the one very bad year over there and the one very good year over there. Right, so now if we want to do a frequency polygon, it's nice and easy. All we need to do is draw a dot in the middle of each interval, and then we just need to connect the dots. So let's do that, have a bit of fun. This is a great deal of fun we can have here. Put a dot in the middle of each interval, and then once we've done that, we just got to connect the dots with a straight line. Or it's more or less straight, I think. So there we go. So it feels like we're back in primary school. We're supposed to connect the dot there. Didn't quite make it, but you know what I mean. So that is our frequency polygon. So now we can also do the histogram with relative frequency. So instead of plotting absolute frequency on the vertical axis, we can plot relative frequency. So remember what the relative frequencies are. These are the percentages. So they show us the percentages of the observations in each interval or bin. So if we go back to our Riverside retail slide, where was it? There we go. So what we're doing now is we're plotting the relative frequencies. So the percentage of observations in each interval. So for example, our most frequently occurring interval, this 0 to 5%, we remember there were 4 of the 10 observations were in this interval. So 40% of the observations were in that interval over there. So if we go back here, where are we? There we go. So that's it. So all we're showing now are the percentages and not the actual number of observations anymore. So if we summarize here, an absolute frequency histogram that we did on the previous slide, that shows us how many items are in each bin. And then the relative frequency histogram, like we got on this slide, it shows us the proportion or the percentage of the total observations in each bin. Great. So now we're going on to the cumulative. Sorry, beg your pardon. There we go. The cumulative relative frequency distribution chart. So what this does, it plots either the cumulative absolute frequency or the cumulative relative frequency on our y-axis over here, our vertical axis, against the upper limit of each upper limit of the interval. So remember, with cumulative, like we discussed in the previous class, what we do is we add up as we go from the first bin up to the last bin. So now we're doing it for our cumulative relative frequencies. So we're going to add up our cumulative relative frequencies as we go from the first bin to the last bin. So if we just read again here, we're plotting this on the y-axis against the upper limit of the interval. So there's the upper limit of each interval there, the 0, the big part of the -5, the 0, the 5, the 10, and the 15. So that's what we are doing. So it's going to be, there's the upper limit there. So our chart is this straight line over here, the black line there, as we are plotting the chart like that. That is our cumulative relative frequency distribution chart. It's quite a mouthful. So what does this shows us? Remember from before, it shows us the number. And in our case, we're doing the percentage because we're doing relative frequency. So it's going to show us, in our case, the percentage of the observations that lie below a certain value. So let's do it for this interval over here. Remember this? So if you go back to the Riverside Retail slide, we can see that we can, if it's cumulative relative frequency, we add up all of the relative frequencies that lie below the upper limit of our interval, which is the 5%. So we add up the 10, the 20, and the 40%. So let's just go back there just to double check. We want to make sure we got it right. Where are we now? There we go. So we add up there the 10, the 20, plus the 40%. It gives us the cumulative relative frequency for this interval, the 0 to 5%, of 70%. Or what we can do is we can take 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 4 is 7. So our cumulative absolute frequency there is 7, and 7 divided by our total number of observations, which is 10, is also going to give us our 70%, 7 over 10. Right, so we can do it one of those two ways. And I put both of them on our slide there so that we can see we can do it either method. So I just made a note here on the right-hand side. So if we've got a steep slope, like over there, from that interval to that interval, that's looking pretty steep. This means that there's going to be a large change in the frequency of observations between adjacent return bins. So as we go from one bin to the next bin. So remember, I think we had in our first bin, we had 1 observation, then 2 in the second bin, then we went to 4. Remember, we're going from 2 to 4. That's quite a big jump. So that's why it's pretty steep over there. But if we've got a flat slope, this means that there's going to be a small change in the frequency of observations between adjacent return bins. So for example, if from the second last bin to the last bin, I think we went from two observations to 1 observation. So there's not a big change. So there we've got quite a flat slope there because there's a small change in the frequency observations between the 2 bins. So basically what we can then conclude is that the slope then of our graph over here, this is our graph over here, the slope of the graph, it actually reflects the change in the number of observations between 2 adjacent return bins. Right, so that is what we can say about that. So now we're going on to the bar chart. So the bar chart, this shows us the frequency distribution of categorical data. So now each bar, it represents a distinct category. So the bar's height, we can either use height or length. This is going to be proportional to the frequency of the corresponding category. So the bars can be plotted either vertically or horizontally. So we're going to do a horizontal one on the next slide. But if we do a vertical one, what's going to happen? I want to actually just leave this for now. Because we are going to do an example of a vertical one in just a few minutes. So I want to come back to this slide then in a couple of minutes. Let's rather first look at our example of the horizontal bar chart. We're going to see it's nice and easy. There it is, horizontal bar chart. So what we're going to do now is look at the frequency by sector for stocks in our portfolio that we did in the previous class. Remember, we had that portfolio of the 200 stocks, and we were invested in 4 sectors: the materials, consumer staples, the financials, and the IT stocks. So if it's a horizontal bar chart, we've got the frequency here along the horizontal or the x-axis. We can call that the x-axis over there. And then on the y-axis, we've got our y-axis or our vertical axis, we've got our different sectors. So we can now quickly and easily see that we've got most of the stocks then are in the IT sector. We've got 70 stocks over here in the IT sector. Right, so these sectors, they are nominal data that we discussed in 1 or 2 classes ago. And then with nominal data, remember, there's no logical ordering. So the bars representing the sectors, they can be in any order. So we could have put financials first or whatever. We don't have to put anything we don't have to put anything in any order. But where the categories in a bar chart are ordered by frequency in descending order, so descending is from, as we know, from biggest to smallest, then and the chart also includes a line displaying the cumulative relative frequency, we call this a Pareto chart. We just need to know that definition, and this then is going to highlight the dominant groups because we're going, from the biggest down to the smallest. Right, so now if we have now we've got a difference. Now we've got 2 categorical variables. Now we need an enhanced version of our bar chart. And this is now called the grouped bar chart or a clustered bar chart. And this shows us our joint frequencies that we discussed in the previous class. So here's our example that we did before. So using the joint frequencies, and remember what we looked at last time, we looked at not only by sector, but also by level of market cap of our portfolio. So what we can now do is we break up, for example, the IT stocks. Remember, there were 70 altogether, but now they're broken up into large. So large has got this dotted pattern. The mids have got these vertical bars, and the smalls is just a solid line. So the 70 stocks are now, we can see, broken up into large caps, mid caps, and small caps. So now we're getting more information, and it's even a better chart than before. So what's great about this, we can easily see that the mid cap IT stocks, that is our biggest subgroup, because we can see them sticking out over here. So there, that's our biggest subgroup there. It's the IT stocks from the mid cap, the vertical bars there, the mid caps, right? And we can also see that the mid-cap stocks, they are the largest subgroup. So these are our mid-cap stocks, they're the largest subgroup in each sector. So there in IT, over there in financial, or I guess financials, the mids and the large are the same. But here in consumer staples, the mid-caps again are the biggest. But not for materials though. For materials, we can see which is the biggest subgroup. So for materials, the biggest subgroup is small cap stocks. There we go. Okay, so that's nice. These graphs are really nice. It really helps us to understand the data a lot better. All right, so all I did is I just plugged these numbers into Excel, and you can just click on, whatever type of chart you want, group bar chart, clustered bar chart, whatever. It's nice and easy. Just plug it into Excel and click on the relevant graph that you want. Right, so now we're going on to a stacked bar chart, and this is another way to present the joint frequency distribution of 2 categorical variables. So now here comes our example as promised. We promised we would do a vertical stacked bar chart, and here's an example of that. Now, the bars representing the subgroups, they've just placed now on top of each other. So there's our subgroups there. They're placed on top of each other to now form a single bar. So if we do our example here, we're using the joint frequencies again by the same thing, by our sector. Our sectors are here, the IT, the financials, consumer staples, and retail, and also by the level of market cap. So we've got the small, the mid, and the large caps. So now we can see what we've got. If we've got a vertical stacked bar chart, we've got the frequency now on the y-axis, and then on the vertical axis, the y-axis, the vertical axis, or and then on the x-axis over here, the horizontal axis over here, we have got our sectors along the horizontal axis. So now, if we go back to that first slide we were looking at when we started this class, it's going to make perfect sense about the vertical. No, it wasn't the first slide we did. It was, but it was an earlier slide rather. So here, for the vertical bar chart, like we just seen, the y-axis is showing us the absolute frequency in this case. It's showing us the frequency. And then the x-axis represents those mutually exclusive categories. So our categories were, the IT stocks, financial stocks, etc. So then we compared. So that is our bar chart then. So remember, with a histogram is different. Histogram, the bins, they group numerical data. So here we are grouping the categorical data. Kiddos. So let's then carry on. So there was our nice vertical stacked bar chart that we've discussed, right? And that means we can now go on to the next one, which is the tree map. So the tree map is nice and easy. So it just consists of a set of nice colored rectangles to represent our groups, and then the area of each rectangle that is going to be proportional to the value of the corresponding group. So if we do it for our portfolio, then we can see here that we've got four different colored rectangles. So the IT one over here is in blue, and now, as we know, IT stocks was the biggest sector, so that's going to be the biggest triangle. Then we've got the orange one over there, it's smaller, and then the consumer staples also smaller, and then the materials one over there is also pretty small. So then we can see then that this shows us the value differences of our categorical groups, and that's what's great about this tree map. But now we are going to break. We've got four, as we said, we've got four different rectangles here. But now what we're going to do, we can see they've broken down. Each rectangle has been broken down into three smaller rectangles. So this tree map, it shows data with additional dimensions by displaying a set of, and we call these smaller rectangles the nested rectangles. So each existing rectangle for each sector, it's split into three sub-rectangles to represent our small cap stocks, our mid cap stocks, and our large cap stocks. So this is then nice, and this is very good, because we can now very, very quickly see that the mid cap IT stocks, that is our biggest subgroup. So we can see the mid cap IT stocks over here, this rectangle, this one over here, that is our biggest sub rectangle, or our biggest nested rectangle. So we can quickly and easily see, that these mid cap IT stocks are the biggest subgroup. Great. So now the last thing we need to look at in this class is the word cloud. So up until now, what have we been focusing on? We've been focusing on numerical data first with the histogram, and then we did the categorical data with a bar chart. But what about if we've got unstructured data? What are we going to then do? Like, for example, with textual data, what are we then going to do? So we're going to then, in this case, do a word cloud if we've got textual data. So a word cloud is also called a tag cloud. So it's a visual device for representing textual data. So all that happens is that words are extracted from a source of textual data. So this, and now all that we do is that words that have got higher frequency, that occur more often in the text, they're going to have a much larger font size. And common words like the, or is, or at, or something like that, those are usually not included. Why? Because we want to focus on the key words that convey the most meaningful info of our textual data. So what's great about having the different font sizes now is then we can quickly see which words in the text are the most important ones and give us the information about the nature of the text. So this includes topic and whether the text conveys positive or negative news. So how we can distinguish between positive or negative news is to use colors. So the words conveying different sentiment, they can be displayed in different colors. So for example, we know growth, that's positive. So we can put that in green, for example, and then decline, or that's not so good, that's negative. So we can put that in red. Or maybe, for example, we could put profit in green and loss in red, something like that. And here's an example that I got from this website, alami.com. And this was a word cloud of finance and business words. So we can see what sticks out the most. The biggest font there, the biggest word is accounting, and money is also pretty big, and economy is there, nice and big, profit, value. So we can and currency. So we can quickly see, these are the most important words in that text. Great. So that's the end then of that class, and we'll see you guys in the next class. Hello, it's Tim here again. I hope you enjoyed the class and found it beneficial. We have some classes available for free on YouTube, but we have classes for the entire curriculum. The classes that are not on YouTube can be purchased from us. If you'd like to purchase the classes, please contact us for the pricing, and I've put our contact details over here. You can purchase all the classes or certain readings that you would like. When you purchase the classes, we provide you with the slides and our notes. I've assisted hundreds of candidates pass CFA exams, and I look forward to also helping you through the CFA program. I've put in 2 testimonials in the slide over here, and we also have a testimonials page on our website that you can review. I look forward to seeing you soon, and all the best.